Hello, everyone, and welcome to Good Treaties Tarot, take two. Um, Mercury retrograde. I don't know. I completely forgot to hit live. I did hit the broadcast button for my little video and forgot to hit live. So here we are, finally. And so Tarot Stash, that answers your question. We were not live now. We were live. Thank you for being here. Something starts ringing tarot as well. And hopefully you'll all see it now. And now we've had a good laugh and we get to do it again. So hopefully it'll go smoother, right? Okay. Today we are going to be talking about the Spacious Tarot. And I have two guests on. The first guest is Jason from Tarot by the Pines. Jason and I have previously met on the Strength Reverse channel talking about the Golden Girls Tarot. So excited to have you with us today. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Rosemary. I appreciate it. Nice seeing you.
Yeah. All right. And my second guest, Jane, is first-time guest on my channel. And she has been a frequent contributor to the chats on my channel. I'm so excited to have her with us today. Welcome, Jane.
Well, thank you.
So glad that you're here with us today. As we've mentioned several times in social media, we're talking about the Spacious Tarot today and what we love or find confusing about it. And since we spoke for about 5 minutes before I went live, I probably will not embarrass myself with my comment earlier. So I do want to introduce the deck real quick for people who have not seen it. I know a lot of people here have it and love it. This is it. This is actually the star card that's featured on the cover here with the trees and the night sky behind them. And you open it up and it says, "This space is for you." And I think it's a very simple but beautiful design with the stars throughout. There have been multiple editions, and this is the second edition. I think that's the one we all have. And if you decide to order the expansion that they have put out, then you'll want to know which edition you had because the coloring is slightly different, I believe. So when I first saw this deck, I thought, okay, well, that's cool. You know, they're removing the people, right? So you don't have to worry about, diversity or that type of thing because there is no person. And so the magician, the same thing. I thought, okay, great. We've got the basic elements. It's just no people in it. But then it wasn't until I got to the High Priestess that I realized, okay, maybe it's a little more than that, right? Than just removing the people. And so this is a card that I struggled with when I first saw it, mainly because I did not realize that was a moon. I've always thought it was a pearl, and I thought that was a really strange way of interpreting the High Priestess, particularly because this card this image also shows up as the Empress in another one of my decks. So what are your thoughts about this conch shell for the High Priestess?
Jane, I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay. I absolutely love it because to me this is the High Priestess. What I love is the fact that there aren't people in this deck. And because this is an intuition reader's dream is what this deck is. If you read by intuition, it's an intuition reader's dreams. And so especially bringing out the High Priestess, having the moon in the conch shell, having the earth and the water. We have the element of earth and water. We have it all, the moon, the shell, and I can see myself there. I can see myself cleansing myself, getting my feet wet in the water and connecting and grounding and bringing down source too. Right? I don't know. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of you, Jane. I love that card. And what I love about the deck in general, I'm probably jumping ahead, but since it is an environment based deck, you literally can put yourself in each card, and like you said, it's an intuition uh, deck that people can really, use with their intuition, and just really makes your intuition run wild. So yeah, High Priestess is a really beautiful card.
And that actually goes back to something that Pamela said in chat. There is a person. The person is you in these particular cards, and I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest with you, Tarot Stash. I did not know it was a moon either until we were chatting during my event that wasn't live earlier. And so, yeah, now I see that it's a moon. It makes so much more sense to me for the High Priestess. But there are a lot of cards that do look like perhaps they've just removed the person, and those are beautiful. I love the colors in this. That whole blue tone to the trees, making it appear night, is gorgeous in the Hermit. I had to actually look at the guidebook for the Emperor as well. I mean, because I didn't quite understand the use of this red flower. I don't know if that's a poppy or
Mm-hmm. It's a poppy.
Yeah. And so that's one of those things that I wouldn't immediately go, oh, that's the Emperor. I would need the name of the card on the bottom, right?
Yeah.
I don't really know much about poppies, so it wouldn't like immediately. I guess the idea here being that it's so big and it's up and like over all of the others, I guess, is what I'm seeing when I notice the word Emperor anyway on it.
You know what's funny, Rosemary? That the Emperor card in general, I dislike it. It seems like very stuffy, but with the Spacious Tarot, I like how it brings a softer touch to the Emperor, but still remaining true to the essence of the Emperor, of being strong and having those leadership qualities. And I do like the fact that they use the poppy, and it is, the color red symbolizes something. So the Emperor is actually one of my favorite cards in this deck.
Red, she says, represents power, and that is something I think a lot of people have an adverse reaction to the Emperor traditionally, at least in the Smith-Waite imagery, because there was so much red, because it looked like a barren land around him, and he was so intense. He was meant to be authoritative, and so in other editions, like say the Boda Tarot or even the Spirit Keeper's Tarot Revelation, he has a much kinder, gentler kind of feel, even though it is still that man on the throne before the mountains. So do either of you have any cards that you just love, that like are your favorites?
Well, I'm going to go with one of my that would not be a normal favorite for me. I have so many favorites, but I really love the Eight of Cups, because with the Eight of Cups, you're leaving you're leaving something behind to go to something better, right? And with this Eight of Cups, it's like the cups are leading the way. And so I can see myself walking, following those cups to that greater place that I'm going to. Maybe even taking a drink from each one. It's watering my way.
I like that.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it.
One of those.
How about you, Jason?
So one of the really amazing cards that I like in this deck is actually the Seven of Swords.
Okay.
The Seven of Swords in general is a tricky card for me to understand up until this deck and maybe another deck. But if you notice with the swords, 6 of the swords have a straight line, and then the one over here has a squiggly line. So something is not right about this particular sword. So I really like that aspect of how it brings the trickery or maybe the deceit essence of the Seven of Swords. So I really like that card.
Okay. Yeah. So I have to say, this is my favorite card by far. And that is the Nine of Cups. Typically, I associate dandelions with air, but the idea of it being associated with a wish works great for me too. And so I just loved this card when I saw it, the symmetry and the dandelion, which I do love for the idea of wish. Um, I actually have the postcard that she had sent, and it's up here in my office because I just this card was just gorgeous. I almost went this direction when I created my Nine of Cups, but I was like, yeah, no, I think I'm going to keep my dandelions on my sword cards. So, so do you guys have your Five of Swords handy, or can you locate it? I would like us to look at our Five of Swords together because an interesting thing came up online the other day um, in regards to the Five of Swords in this deck. So this is what mine looks like. Um, but not
Oh, yeah, I love that card. Yes.
with it. But presumably they should be the same, right? If they're from the same printing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, very much, very much. Yeah, yeah. I think this is the way it was intended to look. There's actually a lot of people who's ended up the bird is cut off. So like, there's actually more snow down here, and the bird's head is cut off. It's just the bottom half of the bird on their card.
Oh,
So I'm not sure, but
Interesting.
maybe one of the editions had a misprint or something, or one of the print runs. But I thought
Interesting.
I would see, since there were three of us from three different places with the deck, we would check. I could see what if
Yeah.
at least they were all the same
Yeah.
within one
yeah.
edition. So
So,
interesting.
Rosemary, I have a quick question about the Five of Swords.
Sure.
How do you feel about it in general? Because this is one of the cards that I don't like in the deck.
Um. Yeah. This card, I would have to read her little white book to see what they were thinking about this card. I kind of get where it was going. Because it does have a similar feel to a lot of Five of Swords I see, where it's about defeat and possibly death. But for me, the Five of Swords is more about that moment of, was this all worth it? And so to me, I don't get that with this card because of the vulture there. I feel like, this is more about picking up the pieces after the battle, which I guess is another way to look at that. Um, so it is a little bit different perspective. And that's one of the things I love about seeing various artists take
Mhm.
on the cards is what they chose to focus on from the meaning.
What I like about this, what I take this to mean is, it's like the bully. He's knocked all those swords down. He's taken away all those swords. Now he only has one perch. He only has one place to sit, and where does he go from there?
Oh,
Okay. Okay. All right. And that's the interesting thing, is a lot of times when I see images that I don't relate to immediately, and then I read their notes, they're basically saying the same thing about the card that I would normally say about the card, but they've chosen to depict it in a way that doesn't click quite with my brain. I'm very interested in attending this class at Northwest Tarot Symposium that is being presented on how our brain interprets images in the tarot. And I can't remember the name of the presenter now, but very excited about that. Yeah, so I love the Judgment card.
Oh yeah.
It's a very different type of judgment card. And what's interesting is that this image resembles to me an idea that is in the Fool in the Bonestone and Earth Flash, that idea of a passage. And so my first thought was, okay, how does that have to deal with judgment? And then, I read, and then I think about it and I read the Little White Book and I'm like, okay, if you're getting to the end of your path and now you're going through to the other side, not knowing what is there, basically.
Yeah.
How about you guys? Do you have any other favorites that you want to share with us?
Well, I absolutely love this Justice card. And what I love about this Justice card is the fact that you can drop justice in a pond of water and it's the ripples of justice that go out. So it's that to me, the yin and yang and the balance and just the ripples of justice of what you choose. That's
Okay. I
something
like that.
interesting.
So for me, this was in my pile of cards that I kind of have a little bit of a struggle with. This is one where I have to read the book and say, okay, what were they thinking when they created this card? It doesn't quite connect with me for justice. But I'm a very analytical person, whereas Jane is obviously a very intuitive person. And so when we look at them, we're looking at them in completely different ways, right? And that's why I love talking about them like this. How about you, Jason?
So this might be one of y'all's favorites too, but the Strength card is one of my all-time favorite strength cards because it has an image of cacti, and cacti thrives in the harshest environment, and it really speaks volume of our strength. And the cacti in the image actually has blooms. So this card is just a really great reminder that, when we go through challenges in our lives, we have that inner strength, or, our intuition that can help us get out of the most challenging situations. So I really love this card.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of a card I did using photos that I took, where I had found a dandelion growing up through the asphalt. And so I immediately connected with this, the idea that you can gain strength and beauty through your struggles, right?
Yeah, because that ground is dry. There is no water there, and it's still blossoming.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So this is another of my favorites that I was working with this card recently in my own project, and I do like this idea of the fire and the water and how they're interacting for temperance, which I thought was very simple and beautiful, which I think is the idea behind the Spacious Tarot, is that, doesn't have to be overly complicated really for us to get the message out of it.
That's right. And the heat and the cold are creating smoke. So even when you mix something together, it's going to create something. So I like that temperance a lot.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is the Eight of Pentacles. This is a gorgeous card. And when you think about the Eight of Pentacles, you're thinking about mastering your craft and putting in that dedication to your work. And when I think of dedication, I think of honeybees or the worker bee. They're always working and they're thriving in that work environment. And I really love the color palette of this. It just screams honeybee to me. So I really like this card.
I love that card too. It was in I had so many piles of cards that I loved that I was like, Jane, you have to just really tone it down. But that was in my pile.
Nice.
I do love some of the simple things. Like, so for me, immediately when I saw this, I thought this was the ace of swords or air.
Mhm.
But I get it's actually a seed. But see, when I was a kid, all I can think about is them flying through the air. And but I love the simplicity of that. And yeah.
And I have these all in my roof gutters right now. Normally the squirrels come and eat the little seeds, but we have these trees all over where I live, and there's a little seed in there, and the squirrels love to eat those, but they haven't done their job this year.
Okay.
Tired.
So Tara Stash asked a question of all of us. So uh, do you guys primarily use the Spacious Tarot reading for yourself, or do you use it reading for others?
I just read it for myself. I don't read for others.
Okay. All right. How about you, Jane?
I basically only use it for myself
Okay.
and for very, very, very close friends that I know are that are intuitive, and I can show them the card and say, where do you see yourself in this card? Because if I'm reading for somebody who doesn't have that, who can't see themselves, who can't place themselves somewhere, then I wouldn't use this deck for them. So it's very few people get to use this deck with me.
Okay. All right. I do have a few more that I enjoy that were unique and interesting ideas, like the lovers
Mhm.
Yeah.
with this kind of helix that was interesting. Um, yeah, the kind of intertwining, and I like the Ten of Cups, how it swirls into the rainbow there. So you get
Yeah.
that rainbow that you get in most Ten of Cups.
Yeah.
I thought this was probably the only one that actually like reminded me of a traditional image where I could immediately go, oh, okay, that's the Six of Wands. That's about victory and that kind of thing. And I know that one of the things that is interesting to me in decks is when you come to the wands, and I've only discovered this because of this whole project I've been doing for 78 cards in 78 weeks, looking through all of my, I thought I had 78 decks. It looks like I have like 80 something because I didn't put some of them on my spreadsheet. But most deck creators seem to struggle with the wands. Those seem to be the hardest to like recreate in a different way from the way they were presented in the Smith Waite. And so at first glance, when we look at them, it just looks like, and this is another thing here, it's less staffs and more like actual magical wands. And so if I keep that in mind, they're a little bit easier to read, but normally they just look like, pips, right?
Mhm.
I mean, this obviously is not a good example because they're 8 racing across the sky, which is what we're used to with this particular card. Um, so what are your thoughts on the wands in this particular deck?
Well, personally, wands actually, I actually do not like the suit of wands in general, but for this deck specifically, I think it helped me create that connection in terms of like um, when it comes to creativity, the sparks fly and you know, go about with your creative endeavors. So I really like that. Um, so it helped me understand the wands a little bit more. And plus, with the Three of Wands, that was actually another one that I really liked because of the three wands. They're illuminating the pathway and it's keeping your focus on your goal. So I really like that particular card in the wands. But the wands in general are really nice in terms of like keeping the essence of the wand suit. And it's just very easy for me to connect to the wands versus any other deck.
Yeah, I actually do really like the 9, even though mainly because it reminds me of the Thoth and the Marseille. And that kind of that one intersecting all of the others, kind of blocking them. kind of way that it really that I really like. Yeah, but when you first start looking at them, it's just like, okay, they're two wands,
Yeah, very
um,
typish.
and not thinking about um, a battle plan, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
Also, too, you can rubbing two sticks together to create fire.
right. Yeah. Okay. I'm so sure it's no surprise to anyone, but I do love the sun in here in this card. Although the sun isn't
Mhm.
quite the main focus, it's there, right? I love sunflowers, so obviously that was a card that I was going to love. If there's not sunflowers in your sun card, then I'm probably going to be disappointed.
You're biased, Rosemary.
A little bit, a little bit. All right. And here's
Oh,
the
I
deck.
love that.
Yeah.
No, and they did a pen of the rose using the colors of the trans flag that was quite pretty. I have it on my hat, which I don't even. I've moved my office and I've lost things. Like I don't even know where a big witch hat is. I don't know. But yeah, I liked this. It was simple, but I think it was really
It's
Yeah.
like
impactful.
it's like death is reaching for the renewal,
Hmm.
kind
Yep.
of.
Embracing the change.
Yeah, yeah.
So, were there any cards that you have found difficult?
I'm still on cards that I really loved.
Okay, tell me about some cards you still love. I
Okay.
have one more in my hand I want to talk about, but you'll probably
Oh,
pick it in a minute.
I'll just go really quick. Like
No
I
problem.
love this Hierophant because there is not a person in it. It's a place.
Okay.
It's like you go where you get that spiritual connection, and so I think this card is really, really cool. I also love the world card because not only does it have the world, it has the whole universe in it, right? And your Eight of Wands, Rosemary, that you were holding up, those to me look like shooting stars.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can also make wishes on shooting stars too. And just I'm sorry, I gotta go just real quick. Three of
No, go right ahead.
Yeah.
We've got plenty of time to share.
the Three of Pentacles, because when you're making those plans, if you don't put down deep roots,
Mhm.
your plans aren't going anywhere. So I love this. I love this representation of the Three of Pentacles. Also,
This was a card that I couldn't decide if I loved or if I had an issue with. I don't know. I think it's because the ground is so straight that it kind of hit me weird or something. But yeah, it's definitely one that I thought was interesting.
well, I think I like it too because I do a lot of work when I do my grounding. I I connect with the trees and the root systems and collect knowledge from them. So that's just my weird thing. And then I love this Hanged One. It's seeing things from a different perspective, or you're hanging out on the moon, but you are completely removed from the situation and seeing it from a different angle, you know. And I often feel like I'm sitting on the moon looking at the earth. So it's that was just to me was
Hmm.
I don't know. That's my weirdness.
Well, what's funny, Jane, the Hanged One is actually one of the cards I not necessarily don't like, but I can't connect with it. So I appreciate you giving your perspective on it and making me appreciate the card image a little bit more now. That was the ones I disliked in the deck.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then the Chariot too, because the water is carving the way through water is powerful. So it's carving the way through the hills too, is the Chariot card. So
That was another one where I couldn't decide if I really loved it or if I would had an issue with it. It's something just felt really weird for me about seeing it that way. Although, as I think about the chariot being associated with water, then, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that the movement and the water, and that's what that card is all about. And Terror Stash has just asked a question, which we're going to get to in just a few minutes, which is about the expansion pack. Jason, did you have any other cards that you're excited to share about?
Not excited to share about, but I did have one. I did have one that maybe you guys can help clarify a little bit. Or I have two cards. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The Four of Cups. I prefer to have one of the cups off to the side. This doesn't really scream Four of the Cups to me. If Jane, if you want to give us your wisdom, I would really appreciate it.
Well, to me, the Four of Cups, it's like if you just leave all your cups sitting up on that what is the stone in this river, then none of your cups are ever going to get filled up.
Okay.
Is the way I see this. So it's sort of like if you just leave them sitting there, you're not going to see that one. So it's a one where you have to take your mind and take down one of those cups and fill it up with the water in the river, sort of, to say, if that makes any sense. But I'm a
Okay.
Pisces, so
The one thing I noticed almost immediately, which may or may not be clear, is that one of the cups is darker than the other three. So like it's different in some
Mhm.
way. Is what I was noticing when I looked at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this definitely doesn't resemble what I would typically see in a Four of Cups or how I might interpret the Four of Cups. And so that's one where I have to look at the guidebook and I have to say, okay, what were they going for here? And that's the other thing, is figuring out what order people put their cards in books, because not everyone follows the same method. So
and I love this little child of pentacles. I love this little bear just sitting there in the middle of the meadow with a pentacle, like playing with a toy and learning about the meadow and about the pentacle. I think this is
Yeah.
just such a cute card. Sorry. Well,
no, that's fine. That's why we're here. Um, I have a couple that I want to ask about too, Jason. You had another one that you were wanting to talk about that you
Yeah.
had
So
questions about.
when it comes to like looking at a card and then not reading the guidebook first, when the devil came up, this was one I struggled with, but when I read the guidebook, I really had to sit on the actual verbiage of what the guidebook says, and like now I get it. So I guess the short end of the story is to always read the guidebook in terms of getting what the card meaning is. I think this one was about being trapped in the darkness and having those trees be as barriers, but if you keep on going, you can basically get yourself out of that entrapment, and that there is always a light waiting for you at the end of the journey.
So what's interesting to me about this card, and you've just mentioned about something else I want to talk about too, is that when I saw this card, I first thought it was the Death card, because the very first tarot deck I ever bought, the Death card looks like this, except for the sky is red instead of that silvery gray kind of color in the background. So my immediate reaction was, okay, why? Why is it like this? And I find that it's a lot of times, and one of the reasons that I'm doing this series called What's So Great is that different people see different things in the cards. You know, me, I'm very analytical, so I'm looking for the symbols and the correspondences and the ideas there that I'm used to most of the time. And then we have other people who are very intuitive, like Jane, and she can draw all kinds of things out of any image that she sees. And so it's been very helpful for me, like I said, not just to read the guidebook, but actually hear other people talk about cards that I struggle with, and what they think about them, because I'm like, oh, okay, that totally makes sense. And there are things that you sometimes our eyes just don't see until someone points them out to us, um, even if we have the guidebook. But this is actually a card I wanted to share. I mean, it's very simple, but it is actually very similar to a lot of wheel cards, and it's showing the 4 seasons there in one wreath, which I think is simple but gorgeous, and it totally gets that point across. There's a special event coming up October 22nd where I'll be exploring this card, the Wheel of Fortune. So look out for that date so you can set it on your calendars. Let's see. Anybody have any other cards they wanted to talk about? Jane had mentioned the Child of Pentacles, and I did want to talk a little bit about the quartz. How do you feel about when decks retitle the quartz or restructure them like they have done here?
It depends on how it is done. I think for this deck, since it doesn't, the core cards are like they're non-binary, so I understand that and I appreciate that more. But for the core cards for this deck, I really enjoy it. Core cards in general are very confusing to me. So when they label it outside of like page, knight, queen, king, stuff like that, it makes it a little bit more simpler for me. And with the guidebook of how, you know, it's non-gender binary and how it talks about the personality of or the energy of that card, I appreciate that. So the core cards, I really enjoy them and I like their structure. So it just depends on how it is done.
Can I just say I have not read the guidebook for this deck at all?
All right, I can see that you know what you're doing.
That's right.
I just somebody it was a gift and they're like, just look at the deck and find yourself in it. And that's what I have done. So I look at everything and I just put myself there and I can go there. And
That's
it's
awesome.
and it's like the double card. I didn't even look at the book. And I'm so glad that you said that, Jason, because to me, yeah, I'm sitting in the woods in the dark, but there is a light that I can look at. I didn't know that it said that in the guidebook,
Yeah.
but that's just what I got from it.
Sure.
Well, you're a pro, Jane. So
Yes, absolutely. So if you got if anybody's watching who doesn't have the deck, so the quartz here are named no, both of you quiet. Now they both started. Our child for the page. We have explorer for the knight, guardian for the wands, and elder for the kings. Interestingly, thing about the queens as guardians, this is actually a concept that Benabel adopted in her Spirit Keepers Tarot as well, where she calls them shields. And so that for me really wasn't a stretch. I think most of these actually work for me as like a group and as a gender neutral approach to the tarot. And I like that they're little families, right? Because you have the birds in the swords, and you have the bears in the pentacles, and you have the koi in the cups. Oh, and the salamanders or the newts and the wands. And so I like it when they can fit together as a little family. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to work on in my 78 cards in 78 weeks project, is getting my courts to actually fit together somehow.
Yeah.
Because I've been creating the cards one at a time each week, as you all know. And so I go back and I look and I'm like, oh, these guys don't even look related at all. So I kind of want to make them related. Now, so Jane, do you have any other cards that you want to share with us today, or anything about this deck that you really want to tell everyone who's listening today?
You know, I think what I really want to get across about this deck is to throw out all of that stuff, because if you're looking for all of the symbolism and you're looking for all the normal symbolism, that's not what you're going to get here. It's just and I think when I look at the court cards, I don't even go, okay, well, this is the page, this is the knight. I just accept that this is the child. I just accept the progression, and I put myself in that place. Am I the child just learning the lesson, or and I love that there's no people, it's genderless, it's everything, I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant.
It's definitely something I've had to be more open to as I've started collecting decks, because I'm very much a structure kind of person. I like a system. I like order, and so for a long time I couldn't buy any decks that renamed the cards, particularly if they renamed the cards and the suits. So then I was totally confused. So I put off buying the Numinous Tarot for several years because it does different suits, it does different names for the cards, and all of that. But yeah, I do find that I love this deck when I look at it. But since I don't read intuitively as well as some, I always rush things, right? That's just who I am. And so it's not as easy for me to pick up this deck and say, okay, I'm going to work with this deck. So obviously this is a deck that I would only read for myself, not for other people, because I'm not as familiar with it. Which was a question Terry Stash had asked earlier. And so, Jason, how about you? What do you have any other cards that you want to bring to our attention, or anything you want to say about this deck and why you think people will enjoy it, or things they should keep in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if y'all consider it a pippish deck or a half pip deck, because it has scenes in it, but it has more than just the symbols. But for someone who has come from a background that likes people in their decks and they like a lot of stuff going on, the Spacious Tarot is a minimalistic deck. It is filled with, as you can see, scenes and scenery and environments. So it's missing that personal or the character in the cards. So just keep in mind that if you like that structure of having characters in your cards, this is going to be a little difficult to read. But with the guidebook, it does help. And since I'm not a big fan of pip decks, this makes me seem like I can read a pip deck because it does have pippish qualities. So to me, the Spacious Tarot makes reading pips a little less intimidating. So yeah, that's what's so great about the Spacious Tarot. Like if you can read this deck, then you can read a pip deck, you can read any other tarot deck out there. And it's just really beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there are, and a lot of, and some of the cards really do resemble traditional imagery that we're familiar with,
Mhm.
while others can be very different. But it's just gorgeous imagery
But
throughout.
that one, Rosemary, it's like
Yeah.
the four of pentacles.
Yes.
It's like those seeds are hanging onto that branch. They're not flying off and taking and becoming something else. So that's what I see in that card. They're
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the reasons I was really just a little off with this deck after I started looking at it was because of the wands. But when I work with it and I look at the imagery and whatnot, I'm like, I really should read it more. I really should work with it more because I mean there are some gorgeous images. The thing I love most about the Tower card is the lightning. And that's in fact that's what I ended up calling my own card. So obviously that one really spoke to me. But and yeah,
And look
and they
where
really
it's going.
did a good job of sticking with a theme really as well
Mhm.
throughout each of the suits. In the Pentacles, it's all about those trees,
Mhm.
and in the Swords, there many of them are a snowy scene.
Mhm.
Um, so that kind of starkness, I think, that we often um, get with the idea of swords and intellect and battle or struggle that goes on with the swords. So it is really a really well done deck. I think when I initially got it, I wasn't ready to work with it, but more and more as I'm going through and studying the tarot more deeply, a lot of it does resonate with me. Like I'm beginning to see like ideas from the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life in this deck that now that I've studied those things, whereas before I looked at this deck and I was like, okay, well, it's pretty images, but you know, um, I don't know if I can connect with it. So,
Uh,
um, before we go, I do want to give each of you an opportunity to say a little bit about your channel or what you're up to right now, if you'd like to share. But first, we're going to answer Tarot Stash's question, which was, does anyone have the expansion? And I have not gotten it yet. And Jason said earlier that he had not gotten it yet, but Jane does have it. So, Jane, do you want to share some thoughts about the expansion and what the purpose behind that was, as far
Well,
as you know?
yeah, as far as I know, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it is to change it makes the tarot deck a Menachi. I'm sure I'm saying that's wrong, but that's goes way back when. It makes it a 96 card deck, and it in the expansion pack. It has the um, astrology, the elements, and some other really cool things. Like here is spaciousness, so you can just look at yourself and space out in there. Here it is, offering. So little birdies, they're eating the excuse me, the berries. Now I am a Pisces, so I got a little offended by this Pisces card because it's a snowflake, and I have been called a flake more than once. But what's really good about the snowflake is that every snowflake is different, but they are all the same, right? So I'm like, I'm cool with that now. And then it has the Libra has all these butterflies. I just think I'm looking forward. Oh, Leo, any Leos in the house? Look at
right
that.
there.
There you go. With your it's a lightning
The
bug.
lightning bug. Yeah.
Because that's what you do is you're the spotlight. Leos are like to be in the spotlight, right? No, take no offense. Aries, fire is a volcano that erupting, um and then transcendence. we go back to the stars. And it's just, and this is what made me mad, because Cancer had all the water. Cancer had the waves. And I was a snowflake, so I got upset about that, but I'm not upset about it any longer. And yeah, so it's just got the elements. Oh, look at this. Curiosity. So it's like I look at that and I'm curious about this curiosity. And and
Jane,
connect.
does it come with a guidebook?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got its own little guidebook.
Nice.
It's not a big, huge guidebook, but I'm sorry. But yeah, it does have a guidebook. But me, I'm a wing it. I'm an intuitive girl. But for these, I will read the expansion. And as I work with this more, I will go and look at and check on my intuition, see if I was right. Yes, there it goes. That's what Pamela says. Oh, you're muted, Rosemary.
Yeah. So, yeah, my dogs are screaming now to go downstairs. So, but yeah, so they do have a class on their website right now that's free about the deck, the Machete deck. I have to figure out how to say that before I try to say it again next time. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And letting us know about it. Benabel Wynn had mentioned it Sunday when we were talking about the Four of Swords. And I mentioned that we were doing this today. So I'm going to have to check into it, see if I want to acquire it or not. Maybe someone has a flip through out there of the expansion pack.
Maybe I'll do it.
The website is spacioustarot.com. I believe that they are on, and there are still copies of the second edition available. Since you were already sharing with us, Jane, do you have anything coming up on your channel you want to tell us about, or anything that you're working on that you would like our audience to know?
I don't really, I just do my thing every morning pretty much every morning. And the only thing I have coming up is about every couple of weeks, Tarot Stash is on, and we call it Tuesdays with Tarot Stash, exclusively on Jane the Seeker Tarot. And yeah, I've just been doing a lot of mediumship classes and things like that. So I'm taking a little step back from my channel so that I can focus on some other things. But
Okay.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And I know Jason has been very busy recently. Are you going to be doing anything in the near future on your channel?
Yeah, I have been busy. I have a couple videos on the docket. They're all Halloween based. So if you like Halloween season, then that's right up your alley. But I think after that, I'm going to take a small break to enjoy the busy holiday season. But I think I'll just have some sporadic videos here and there before I go back to the busy season. But yeah, just Halloween stuff coming up, and all that information will be on the community tab on my channel.
Great. There are links for their channels in the description box below. If you look down there. As far as my channel goes, this Sunday I will be doing my regular 7-8 cards in 7-8 weeks. This week I'm talking about the Two of Cups. Interesting thing about this card and several cards in my collection, they have lotuses on them for the Two of Cups, which is actually in the Thoth. So whether it's inspired by the Thoth or not, I thought that was an interesting connection, one that I'll have to explore. Although I don't know that the card that I've designed has a space for a lotus. And I will be talking with Beverly Frabel from Tarot Connections about the Two of Cups this Sunday. Also, I'm starting to plan for the rest of our 78 cards in 78 weeks, which there's only like 25 left. And I have people booked through December 4th right now to be on that with me and talk about the cards. So do join me each week, Sundays at 1 p.m. And I want to thank you both for being here and chatting with me about the deck, and appreciate all of our viewers' interaction in the chat. We've had some great comments today and some good information. It's always a pleasure to be here. Until next time, everybody, good journeys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.